The trial chamber carved into the living rock of Care Prime had witnessed countless judgments over 3,000 years. Today it would witness something unprecedented. Commander Lyra Hale stood in the defendant's circle, her uniform pressed and pristine despite 6 months in detention. Around her, the 12 elders of the Karish sat elevated on their stone thrones, their silver fur bristling with barely contained rage. She had expected their anger. What she hadn't expected were the 2 smaller figures that had taken seats beside Elder Thane's throne. Cub Varric and Cub Sira sat with their backs straight, their young faces set with determination that seemed far too old for their 8 solar cycles. "This is an outrage," Elder Morvik's voice thundered through the chamber. "Cubs have no place in the Council of Judgment. They lack the wisdom, the experience, the choice." Lyra's voice cut through the tirade, calm and measured. "Isn't that what you've always claimed? That cubs cannot choose until their ascension?" The chamber fell silent. 50 Karish witnesses shifted uncomfortably in the gallery. The trial had been called to condemn the human who had dared to arm their young, who had violated the sacred law that cubs were to be protected, sheltered, kept innocent until their 16th year. Elder Thane's eyes, black and bottomless, fixed on Lyra. "You taught them to kill, human. You put weapons in their paws when they should have been learning the songs of our ancestors. I taught them to survive," Lyra corrected. "When the Vakari swarm broke through your planetary defenses, when your warriors fell and your cities burned, I taught them what they needed to know. You had no right, she had every right." Varric's voice was small but unwavering. The cub stood, his tan fur catching the light from the ceremonial flames. "We chose to learn," Sira rose beside him. "We chose to fight." The elders erupted in protest. The ancient chamber, which had maintained its dignity through wars and plagues and political upheavals, descended into chaos. Cubs could not speak in council. Cubs could not choose. Cubs were sacred vessels of innocence that must be preserved. Lyra watched it all with the patience that had made her one of the Alliance's most effective commanders. She had known this moment would come since the day the Vakari were finally driven from Care Prime. She had known since the moment she'd handed that first pulse rifle to Varric, seeing in his eyes not a child's fear, but a survivor's determination. The Karish had called for human aid when their defensive fleet was shattered. They had welcomed the Alliance forces with desperate gratitude, but they had been very clear. Their cubs were off limits. No matter what happened, the young must be kept safe in the underground shelters, protected from the reality of war. Lyra had agreed, right up until Shelter 7's life support failed and 300 cubs suffocated in the dark while Karish warriors died trying to maintain a perimeter they couldn't hold. Order. Elder Thane's roar finally silenced the chamber. His gaze swept across his fellow elders, then settled on the 2 cubs who had violated every protocol by taking their seats beside him. "Varric, Sira, you will return to the youth quarters. Immediately." "No." Varric's paw moved to rest on the ceremonial, blade at his belt, the blade Lyra had given him after he'd saved 43 cubs from a Vakari infiltrator. "You claim we cannot choose. Yet here we are choosing." Sira's voice joined her brother's. "You say we lack wisdom. Yet we knew Commander Hale was right when you were still debating. When Shelter 12 was breached," Varric continued, "the commander didn't ask if we were old enough to fight. She asked if we wanted to live." The gallery stirred. Other cubs had come to watch, though they were supposed to remain in the youth quarters during council proceedings. Now they pressed forward, their young faces reflecting something the elders had tried to keep from them: agency. Elder Morvik stood, his voice desperate now. "This human has poisoned your minds. She has stolen your innocence, your childhood. The Vakari stole our childhood." Sira's eyes blazed. "They killed our parents. They destroyed our homes. They would have killed us too, if Commander Hale had listened to you." Lyra finally spoke again, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "I stand accused of arming your cubs. I am guilty. I stand accused of teaching them violence. I am guilty. I stand accused of giving them a choice you claimed they couldn't make." She paused, meeting each elder's gaze in turn. "And I would do it again." "Then you will face the consequences," Elder Thane said quietly. "Exile from Karish space. Permanent ban from Alliance positions involving protected species. Your career, your reputation, is worth less than their lives." Lyra's interruption was sharp. "Every single one of them. Varric moved then, descending from his seat beside the elder to stand in the defendant's circle with Lyra. Sira followed. Then one by one other cubs emerged from the gallery. Dozens of them, each bearing the weapons Lyra had taught them to use, each wearing the survival gear that had kept them alive. They formed a circle around their teacher, these children who had been forced to become something more. "We stand with the human," Varric declared. "If she is exiled, we choose exile with her." Elder Thane stared at the scene before him, the human commander surrounded by cubs who should have been innocent, who should have been playing and learning songs, but who instead bore the scars of survival. His ancient eyes moved from face to young face, seeing something that shattered his certainty. They had chosen. Despite everything the elders claimed about cubs lacking the capacity for such decisions, they had chosen. "The trial," Elder Thane said slowly, "is concluded." He stood, his silver fur seeming to dim in the firelight. "Commander Hale, you are found guilty of every charge. You are also found," he paused, his voice breaking slightly, "necessary. Necessary in a way we elders were not." The chamber erupted again, but this time in confusion rather than outrage. "The sentence is this," Thane continued. "You will remain on Care Prime. You will train our warriors in your methods. And you will teach all elders how to listen when cubs speak." Lyra stood motionless, processing the unexpected turn. Varric looked up at her, his young face breaking into the first real smile she'd seen from him in months. "Does this mean we get to keep training?" Despite everything, the trial, the accusations, the weight of what she'd done, Lyra smiled back. "If the elders permit it." Elder Thane descended from his throne for the first time in anyone's memory, approaching the circle of cubs. He knelt before Varric and Sira, meeting them at eye level. "We claimed you could not choose," he said softly. "Yet you sit in judgment beside us, and we find ourselves wanting." The old Karish looked at Lyra then, and she saw in his eyes the same thing she'd seen in Varric's that first day, recognition of an unbearable truth. "Teach us, human," Elder Thane said. "Teach us how to protect our young by trusting them." In the silence that followed, Lyra heard the future of the Karish people shifting, and she knew, whatever came next, these cubs would face it not as victims to be sheltered, but as individuals who had earned the right to choose their own path, even if that path led through fire.